everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Terry, and today we're going to make blackberry pies with a crumble topping on them. So I'm going to get busy and walk you through that. Some of you may have seen my video the other day that we made bumbleberry jam. We'd gone out and picked 2 ice cream buckets just like these two, and because we were able to spread them on cookie sheets and freeze them for next year or whenever in the winter we need them, we used the ones that we already had in the freezer, and we made bumbleberry jam with raspberries, blueberries, and strawberries. So now we've gone and picked 2 more buckets of the blackberries, and we're going to make pies with them. And any we have left over after we've made about, I think I'll probably do 4 pies today. Any that we have left over, then I will again lay them out on cookie sheets so they don't stick together, and freeze them and pack them up into freezer bags for the winter. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is make the crumble for the top of these pies. And I'm going to make 3 times the batch because I'm going to do 4 pies and I need a lot of crumble. So the first thing I'm going to put in here is cut up the margarine. Normally it would be 1/2 cup, and I'm going to put in 1.5 cups. Okay, we're going to put aside this 1.5 cups of margarine, and we're going to mix up the dry ingredients in here. The flour, the oats, the brown sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and the salt. Mix it all together in here, and then I will cut it all into the margarine. This is a pretty simple crumble recipe that I've used for a lot of years. The basic 1 times the recipe, or the original recipe, is 1/2 cup of margarine, 3/4 cup of the brown sugar, 3/4 cup of flour, 3/4 cup of oats, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now, because I am 3 times the batching, then of course it's 2¼ cups of the brown sugar. 1 cup is in there, packed brown sugar, and that makes 2¼ and I'll just repeat that with 2¼ cups of flour, 2¼ cups of the oats, and then 1.5 teaspoons of the cinnamon, 3/4 teaspoon of the nutmeg, and 3/4 teaspoon of the salt. Once that's all mixed together, then I will cut it into the margarine. And 1/2, a little bit, I always put a little bit more in. 1/2 of the cinnamon, and, does it say? Now that that's all mixed up, I will put away my brown sugar that's been waiting here patiently for my dampened little crockery bear that goes in here to keep that brown sugar nice and moist for my next time I'm going to use it. There we be. Some of you might have noticed I've put on my apron because I was making a bit of a mess. So I thought I'd better put it on. Okay, now I'm just going to cut that in. Just with this, one of the best things they ever invented. Take me a few minutes to cut all this margarine into these flour, oats, and brown sugar mix. And like I might have said, this is one of the best crumble recipes I've ever come across, but a lot of people have different ones they like. So whatever you like as a crumble recipe works just fine. All right. That crumble is all mixed up. Take a huge bowl of it, and we can move on to making the pastry for these pies. Now, for those of you who have watched previous videos that I've done, I have made this pastry recipe completely on the video I did on the quiche Lorraine. I used the tender flake lard. The recipe's on the bottom. Calls for the 1 pound of the lard. I've never cut it down because it calls for an egg and it calls for a tablespoon of the vinegar, and so I just make it up, and if I don't use it all, I put it in the fridge and try to use it within a short period of time. So what I do is the 1 pound of the lard, 5.5 cups of the all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 egg that's been slightly beaten, and the cold water. When you put the vinegar in the cup, you fill the cold water to make the 1 cup. So we're going to do that and see how that goes. Be back in a minute. Okay, I have the lard all cut up into squares, relatively small, not too small, but into smaller chunks than just dumping in a whole pound. That's for sure. So maybe into chunks about this big. All right. Now the recipe says to mix together the 5.5 cups of flour and the 2 teaspoons of salt, which is what I've just done here. Flour and the salt mixed together. And then I'm going to dump it onto this lard, and I'm going to cut it in with my pastry blender right here. And we'll be right back. This will take a few minutes, and then once it's all cut in, then I'll be ready to add the ice water that has the slightly beaten egg and the vinegar mixed with it. Okay, that's all cut in. Hard work. Good thing the air conditioner just turned on. I was wondering when it would cut in. It says it's 27 Celsius out there in the shade. What is the date today? August the 5th. So, we still haven't had any rain. Must be about 2 months now that there's been no rain, so. Bush is very dry. And there's a lot of forest fires. So keep our fingers crossed that we stay safe. Okay, now I'm going to move on to getting the ice water, the vinegar, and the beaten egg together. Okay, 1 egg. Slightly beaten from Chris and Shauna's eggs. And then, once that's just beaten lightly, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of white vinegar, and then I'm going to bring it up to 1 cup with the water that I've had here with ice cubes in, getting nice and ice cold. So we'll just work on that. Now into there, I'm just going to pour in this ice water, egg, and vinegar mixture. And I know that it says in pretty much every recipe, chill this in the fridge for a few hours or however long or overnight. But you know what? I never have time for that. Unless I made it the night before and was making up the pies the next day. But frankly, it'll roll out fine. Just have to have a little bit of patience maybe mixing it. But anyway, we'll move on with that, and I'll clear a spot over here to roll this out. Okay, for right now, I'm just going to make this into a nice big ball, and I'm going to cut it into 4 equal parts because I want to make 4 pies, and then I'll use each chunk and whatever's left over from rolling out each plate, I will just put that away as leftover dough. So let's just do this kind of evenly into 4 pieces. It should make a lot more than that, but depends how thick you actually have the crust of the pie. So there we go. There's 4 of those. And I'll get busy, start rolling out this, but the cat's scratching at the door and I gotta let her out. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. And I'm just going to get busy rolling these out. So I'll do that. Put this in speedy motion maybe. Now is that gone crooked? Oh, silly thing. Okay, I'm going to turn that off while I finish rolling this out and show you what it looks like when I'm going to put it in the pan. Make this one a little bit different. All right, number 2. And I think I will do one more of the glass ones so I can get both of them into the oven and cooking. So we have this next one done. It's a little thicker for them. That's okay. Into there. Into there. Flip it around. Press it down nice. Make a nice edge. And we'll be back and start filling these with blackberries. Okay, moving along here, we've got the 2 glass pie shells with pastry in them. They're quite big, so I'm actually gonna see if 6 cups of the blackberries fills them to a good level. 4 cups doesn't seem to cut it, so 6. So to 6 cups of blackberries in here, I've added 1.5 cups of sugar, 1/3 of a cup of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1.5 teaspoons of nutmeg, pinch of salt, and I've also grated in some lemon rind from my lemons. And then I think once I get it mixed up, I'll pour a little bit of the lemon juice on it as well. So I'm just going to mix this up, see how much it fills one of the pie shells. And then work on the second one, and I'll be back when I put the crumble on. Before we get to the crumble, I wanted to just show you this mixture here, mixed up. Let's see how it fills this pie shell. I always get a little crazy and put too much in, but then it's kind of nice to have it thick with the blackberries. You know. Probably about enough. Okay, I think that's full enough, and then we're gonna. Okay, I'm gonna mix up another batch of the blackberries. Pie shell number 2. 6 cups of fruit seems to actually be quite a lot. Probably 5 would have been good. But I'll have a lot extra. I'll just make less for the last couple. Cut it back. Maybe another scoop. Yeah, it's gonna bubble all over and be in my oven, but whatever. Okay. 2 cups of the crumble seems to work quite well on these. And I think I might have enough for all 4. If no, yes, I'm sure it will be. Just like that. If I don't, I'll use the pastry for topping. Started putting crumble on pies. Years ago, my grandmother used to come over and make plum pies from our Italian prune plums, and it was absolutely delicious, and she always put a crumble on top of those pies. Do you remember that, hon?
Yeah.
When Grandma Smith used to come over and make those Italian prune plums, she used to make pies.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yes, and she always put crumble on top, and so it's always been a great alternative to always having the pastry. Okay, it's ready, and I think that oven is just about ready to go, so check it out. There's a shot of them in the oven with the tin foil underneath, because you know they're gonna bubble over and it's gonna be a mess. So try to save the oven a little bit by putting the tin foil. Okay, we're down to these last 2 shells, and maybe a smarter way if you're doing big batches like this is to actually, instead of trying to lift that bowl up for some people, might be to ladle it with a soup ladle like this and fill the shells. Not exactly sure how much I'll have extra to make a little bit for a sampler one. Perhaps we'll go like this. I think we'll have lots actually. So that would be 1 filled right there. Put it over here for now. Bring in this other one. Fill it. Oops. And it's getting down to the end, so I'm going to stop, and I have enough for instead of 6 cups, I just made up 4 more cups of the blackberries, and instead of 1.5 cups of sugar, I used 1 cup and only 1/4 cup of flour and everything, and reduce the spices because I knew I'd have too much. So I'm just going to mix that up and finish filling this, and then I'm going to get this crumble on these last 2 and see what I have left over. Okay, I've got 2 more of these pies done, and I had enough to make 4 of these little samplers that I'm hoping I'll have just enough crumble to put on the top of those. Those are kind of nice for in the freezer for Al and I when there's not other people coming for supper and we just want a little bit of dessert. It's plenty. So that's what I'm going to do. Put those into the oven with the other stuff. There we go. Second oven. These other 2 pies are in, and the 4 little extra ones are also in there. So timer's on for 45 minutes, and the other oven actually is just about finished. So we'll check on that in a few minutes. Good morning. Well, they've cooled overnight. They've set up beautifully. As you can see, I have 2 of the glass ones, 2 of the tin ones already packaged up for the freezer. 3 that we can use for ourselves. 1 right here that I've already been sampling. Tastes delicious, and it's set up beautifully. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and you guys all stay safe and take care, okay? Bye-bye.